does anybody have something to get us started?
Hold on just a minute, Michael. We got to get Dave's microphone unmuted.
Okay. Yeah, I've asked him to unmute.
Okay.
But yeah, so Dave, the mute or allow microphone is on the bottom left-hand corner of your Zoom screen. If that fails, Dave, maybe you could type your thoughts into the chat. Okay. Ah, there's a profile of Dana.
Hello.
Hello, Dana.
Everybody.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect. I'm set.
Can you hear me? I'm set.
You as well.
Hey, Glennis, Kim.
Hi.
Julian.
So
Hi, everybody.
I think that Anne Claire wanted to get us started.
I really loved the using the katana.
Right?
I have my best friend is my cousin, and our moms are sisters, and she used to always say how people would tell her that she was like a marshmallow on the outside but steel on the inside.
Oh, okay. So it's
And I thought that might not, how's that working for you?
Right.
And today you explained in a way I'm going to explain to her. I might even send her the link to the whole thing, that how much more powerful and strong it is to keep that soft on the inside. And I love the idea of balance.
Yeah.
I guess I have to thank all those people that on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
For if not them, I wouldn't be saying whatever. So those were I really enjoyed it, Michael.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, and I think that the necessary part to keep in mind is discussion versus argument. Especially in the online community, there are so many people, and I'm absolutely guilty of this myself, who are looking for who are looking for a fight, because we have this like pent up anger, and we need a release for that. And when that ends up being another person, it's like, what have we really accomplished?
Right.
And so discussion is, I think should be our goal, which is why I'm so happy to see all of you. Okay.
It really takes some mindfulness though in the moment when your reaction is to say, okay, take the breath. It's so much easier if somebody standing next to me says, take a breath. I don't always remember that for myself.
Oh my gosh. And that pause is absolutely vital, because if somebody attacks you in a way that hurts you, for me anyway, I can only speak for myself, my immediate response is I want to hurt you back, like, instead of saying, okay, wait, let's break down why this visceral reaction is emerging and try to help the person see a new point of view. So
yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Well, I have several friends who think completely differently from myself. And while the phrase agree to disagree is right now being overused amongst people that I know, the truth is that I think that it's about, okay, I value you. Let me give you an example. One of my favorite guitar players to play with is on the other side completely, of the coin. And we've had discussions, but the whole thing is always done with respect. Why? Because we have something else besides this thing that we're arguing over or discussing. We had music together, and that's the great equalizer. That's the great calming influence on, even though it's not really calm music. But what I'm saying is that was the common ground. So it's important to me to think of where I might find that common ground with whoever it is that I am discussing with.
And that reminds me of you know, for the first half of my life, I really dedicated it to music, but also to art in general, be it theater, dance, you know, visual arts, things like that, because I genuinely felt I had a great college professor. Her name was Dr. Klingenstein, and she always talked about art as being the thread and the binding of a society, right? So that regardless of our cultural background and regardless of, you know, of maybe our political, even though she didn't say this, I think it's apt, that we had a common, we had something common that we could look at and see that we were part of the same whole. And I can't think of anything that really does that outside of art, or at least as effectively as art does.
Yeah, I think of it as a step above agree to disagree, okay?
Oh, yeah.
I disagree with you, but I still honor and respect you and like you.
Yeah.
But I disagree with you 95% of the time, and which is what I've told him, you know?
Right.
I have an
And you know what?
example.
It works out with me too.
I have an example from trying to get the Myrtle Creek Library restarted after the library system folded. Myrtle Creek has an extremely small community of anyone remotely liberally minded. And so we were able to come together because we all valued libraries. And we absolutely agree to never have a political discussion because it would be so fraught. And the overarching value brings us all together. And we're able to work with 30 different people with 30 different political opinions easily and well, because our primary purpose is for libraries who benefit everyone. And that's socioeconomically will serve anybody. And we absolutely do believe that, and that's unstated. No one tutored anyone into that belief. It's a commonly held
interested in this. I'm listening.
library people.
But isn't that so beautiful though, that 30 different viewpoints could agree that libraries are essential? I mean,
Yes.
you know, because I remember leading up to the decision, I think it was the tax decision.
Yes.
You know, that it was pinned as very much like a left and a right issue. You know, and the fact that you have people who are diametrically opposed in politics see the need for a library, I think is not even just a great starting point, it's almost a great ending point.
Yes.
You know. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's great.
That's great.
Yeah.
I was cleaning up the other day and came across my thesis from ministerial school. And I opened it up and I'm going, wow, I used to be kind of smart.
Yeah. Well, you know, we knew everything when we were younger.
Yeah, totally. But what I knew best, according to this paper, is how to find really great quotes and go from there. But I was reading about Thich Nhat Hanh talking about it's like having a stick. And you find this, or a branch, I think he said a branch, and you have this beautiful branch, but what you really see is all beautiful is on the right side, and you really don't care much for the left side, so you just cut off the left side.
Right.
The branch is still a branch, and it still has a left side. So you cut off a little more, but there's still a left side, and it's still a branch.
Right.
And I really liked that too, because it is hard. It's old friends who I don't want to cut them off as being the wrong end of the branch.
Right.
Because we are a branch.
Right. Yeah. It was Wayne Dyer, I think, who said, no matter how thin you cut a magnet, it's still going to have two poles.
Yeah.
And the idea is that nothing in this universe has only one side. You know, that we are in a three-dimensional place. So, yeah, Yeah, that's great. I'd never heard that quote before, but I'm definitely gonna keep that in mind.
Mhm. Mm.
Hi, Sharon. Sharon has joined us.
I have.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
You
Hi,
wanna-
Sharon.
Hi, everyone. I haven't heard the last few minutes of the service yet.
Oh yeah, I know. I ran a little long.
Sorry,
No, and I'm
Well,
sorry about that.
that wasn't the problem. My technology challenges. So,
Yeah, I did my best, but the 7 principles there is meaty, man. It's
I wondered how you were going to do it.
yeah. The more you read into those, and the more you think of, well, in what situations do I not adhere to these principles? And there's a lot to say about every single one of them. And it wasn't until I started the camera rolling and started thinking about it that, well, I mean, I've been thinking about it for some time, but really started to put everything together. Man, anybody who says they've got those, nailed down in their own life, I think it may be either self-deluded or on a much higher plane of
Yeah.
of ethics and philosophy than I am.
Mhm.
Hello, Martha.
Hi, here I am. Sorry about being late.
Martha.
Hola, hola.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
I
Hello.
Good morning.
Good
all.
morning. I've got you running in the
So,
background here. Wait a
Once
minute.
again,
Oh.
it gets to be my Sunday, and I was kind of inspired by Leslie's
There's a
service last time. So instead
Okay,
of broadcasting,
Bruce,
kind of,
Bruce
Was
is
it
out.
goody?
I'll just finish watching this.
and
yeah. Hey, Martha.
before I start the service,
Can
Yeah,
you-
I want to ask
Wait.
you.
we can actually hear that.
Wait a
Maybe
minute.
the most obvious question you'll hear for a while.
Hang on.
But the reason I'm broadcasting
Mute her.
is
Yeah,
I
there we go. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah.
There you go.
The joy of live technology.
But it looks like Martha's muted.
She
Yes,
is muted
Yeah.
because yes, that was intentional.
Yeah.
she needs to mute the service, not
Yeah.
herself.
Yeah.
Turn her back on. See if she's out of it.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Okay.
When you said in the service that our prior services have been one-sided,
Yes.
I really appreciate that statement
Mm-hmm.
because I feel that is the case often, not always, but often. And I've been dealing with staying on Facebook or getting off of Facebook
Yeah. You're not kidding.
because
Yeah.
of the one slanted side of it that seems to be a lot of what I receive.
Hmm.
So I did one thing, and that was to only hear first from my very close family,
Hmm.
because they did not make me irate. I didn't want to lose out on the other part of the family and their life. I just didn't want to be preached at every day, 3 or 4 times a day when I checked checked Facebook. Then I heard, I wish I'd remember the source, but I listened to podcasts, and one guest was talking about Zuckerberg and his attitude to not, of course, we know he has changed his mind, his attitude about letting anything on there unless it's a threat.
Mhm.
But yet they're not catching all the threats either.
Right.
The point that was brought out so distinctly to me was that Facebook seems to be a very public platform for conservative thinkers.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, really?
And that's what I was receiving.
Okay.
And that's what made me angry.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it should be so one-sided.
Okay.
And I did what I thought was kind of neutral. There was a post about why is this anti-racism coming up now? Why wasn't it taken care of during the 8 years of the Black president?
Yeah.
Oh, oh.
Whoa.
And
All
I
right,
was
there you go.
I was, I was like fit to be tied, and I was invigorated in the early morning, and I said, I can't let this go by, like I have for so many others. And so basically what I said, you know, I could have worded it better if I had waited and thought about it. But I said, I think it is up to each one of us to learn how to be anti-racist.
Right.
I am educating myself to understand my unearned position of white privilege.
Mm.
Will anybody join me?
Well,
I got one comment,
okay.
and it was somebody with the emoji laughing their head off.
How's that funny?
So see here, and this is, it's interesting that you say white privilege, because this was one of the things with which I take issue, is that we talk about white privilege as if it's settled science, right? The idea of white privilege is a hypothesis to explain, one hypothesis to explain the situation racially that we find ourselves in as a civilization. Now, the problem with the white privilege hypothesis is that it ascribes collective guilt to individuals who had no part in setting up the society the way it is. And furthermore, it's this notion of being monolithic, right? I'll give you a very stupid example, right? But there was a time where I was on dating websites. And if you're on dating websites currently, you know, I haven't been for some time, but the most desirable females, the females who get the most messages are young Asian women. Whereas the males who get the most responses or messages are tall Black men. Now, in this situation, right, that a tall Black man has an advantage over, you know, say an average height white man, is that a privilege of skin color? You know, furthermore, if interracial violence occurs, and it does, it really occurs primarily one-sided. It's much more common, and the FBI statistics are crystal clear on this. You know, and this is going to hurt. This is going to sting. But in interracial violence, it's enormously Black perpetrators being violent against white victims. Now, is there a sense of privilege in that? You know, these are tough questions, and so to blanket the idea of white privilege over everybody in this gigantic group, I think is really contrary to the kind of social progress that it seeks to advance.
Michael, I'd like to change that up a little bit.
Okay.
And that is, I don't think it's about the people involved. I think privilege in this case is strictly being talked about as economic and legal privilege, in that I don't have to be afraid. Well, I'm not afraid of race when I walk down the street. I am afraid of size, but not afraid of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But economic, there was never redlining against, well, there was. There were times when single women couldn't get credit.
You get a checkbook either.
Right. And that is the kind of privilege we are talking about that has allowed us in 200 years, we have this huge head start. And, and so economically, families have passed down wealth, and families who weren't, for whatever reason, given the privilege of the head start, have some catching up to do. That's how I see it. I don't see it at all as I'm socially, like on the dating website. I don't see it that way at all. I see it about renting. I see it about, now, you know, the difference is I'm the child of a slumlord. My dates when I was in high school, they would get paid to serve papers, and then my father would pay them, and that would pay for our date. I mean, I grew up watching people being thrown into the street, primarily Black people, and hearing my father complain about them. So I also saw how he would treat white people differently, and that was privilege.
Right.
In Santa Clara Valley had the Apartment Owners Association when it was still legal to blackball tenants. He never blackballed a white tenant.
And well, there's a ton there. There's a ton there to talk about. You know, last point first is somebody who has critiques about the white privilege hypothesis would say that your father as an individual is responsible for his actions, and that other people who have the same skin pigmentation cannot be held responsible for the actions of one.
That's what I was going to say. However, we do all have the responsibility to say something about it and notice it and address it.
Okay.
That is our responsibility. Okay. That's the point.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, yeah, so I learned it early, so I started talking about it early when people would give me those looks, you know.
Right.
But it never changed my reality.
Right.
That my father was part of a group. You know, I worked with him, so I knew all of these other white men who were of the same mindset, and their children got into the better colleges. You know, I was accepted to USC because my dad went to USC on the GI Bill. That's one fucking big privilege.
Legacy, right? Like legacy advantages.
Yes.
Yeah. But I don't want to ignore the first point you made, which was one of economic privilege or underprivilege.
Underprivileged.
And I will tell you, you know, and I don't know if this changes anything, but having worked at the Woolley Center, an alternative high school in Roseburg, Oregon, primarily dealing with severely I mean, I am talking about people who are going hungry, people, parents have prostituted them out for drugs, people who have, you know, I mean, imagine, I had no idea that these kinds of things happened in modern America before. Oh no, but I know. Yeah, you all can say, well, of course, but no, I was very naive.
Michael, I do have my hand raised.
Oh, okay. I'll give you one moment.
Okay.
And these were all primarily young white kids. Okay. And there was
Julian.
I just have a point. I've been attending the UUA all week, 15 hours a day, Glennis, yeah. So there have been numerous workshops on how to be an anti-racist, and there is an actual group that's been formed on how to be an ally. And I would be willing to have further discussions within our congregation about this. There's important viewpoints that we have not addressed. We don't know what the commonly held beliefs of our own congregation are. And
good point.
That's a good point.
Good point.
That's a very good point.
Good point.
so I would be willing to facilitate that to whatever limited ability I have. I also would be willing to buy for the congregation library a copy of How to Be an Anti-Racist. I'm reading it right now, and it's just.
I have it too, Julian.
Yeah, it's eye-opening.
Okay, so Laleen, I think, has a response for that.
Are you muting us?
No, I'm not.
You're live.
Yeah.
Okay, Julian, yes, we want to start the anti-racism in AEO as an ongoing thing. And hopefully next week, if you're feeling really fresh, do you want to help kick that off?
Yes, I absolutely will.
I really want to start with white anti-white racism and with allies and the whole shoot and shebang. So I'll call you and we'll talk about that. That's very exciting.
Cool.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Lillian. Okay, cool. Those were some really good points. Does anybody else want to chime in? It doesn't have to be the same discussion. Martha?
Well, in studying, I'm sorry about my voice. I'm getting sexy in the morning, I guess.
You're always sexy.
Oh yeah. I'm a history nut, and watching Smithsonian Channel, History Channel, and watching the whole thing on Ulysses S. Grant and the war, and how Lincoln tried to get Reconstruction going, and how Johnson, his vice president, said, screw that, we're not going to do it, which then gave rise to all the Jim Crow and all the crap and all this through the turn of the 20th century, and all the statues going up with all the anti-racist groups, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There has been more than 200 years, it's been past that, where people of color have not been able to own property. They didn't even own themselves. They didn't even own their children, et cetera, et cetera. These are, I think, what are the basis of a lot of these feelings. It is economic, but it is also the fact of these people are people. They've never been able to form any kind of legacy for their families. They couldn't even own their children. Their children could go someplace else. This is what a lot of the stem of this. And when people say, well, why can't they just get up by their bootstraps? Well, there's been generations after generations after generations of dominance by all these red line laws, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Look at how the white people came from the Midwest and East and got property all the way across and displaced all the indigenous people. To me, that's white privilege. That's historic white privilege.
That is capital. That's capitalism in action.
Yes,
Martha.
there you go. Thank you. Basically we're talking about, but money does buy property, and these people have had this forever. And then of course we've got the segregated neighborhoods with the redlining that occurred. I remember that. Just look at Chicago, where I come from. My dad dealt with all the politicians in his job, and it was done intentionally just to keep people in their spots. And so this is what I think a lot of people, I mean, I'm sorry I didn't attend the GA, and I would have loved to, but I'm looking at it from a historical standpoint. So we've got all this stuff on the undercurrent as basic causes of all this frustration, which then turns into, and this has happened time and time again, the LA riots. I was there. I think Lillian was probably there too. And it just happens. It keeps happening. And we've got to change attitudes and change abilities to do things. That's my opinion.
Well, and I think that Lillian's, and I'm more than happy to keep this discussion on this topic if you like. But I think that maybe some of this might be better suited to the AEO.
Yeah, definitely.
Planning. Because there was more to the service than simply race relations.
Right.
Lillian?
I know we came a little late, but we were so engaged in your service that we came late. I want to tell you how amazing that service was. And I felt like it could have been spread over 3 or 4 because there were so many different topics that we could from it. And so I'm very grateful and thank you, because I'm sure that JC and I will be stimulated for days to continue that discussion. One point I wanted to ask about, and I think JC's got her hand up too, was when you were contrasting, the steel man and the soft man, and you went into the arena of politics, and you were saying that we need both. A missing piece in that for me that I struggle with, and maybe you could elaborate on, or others could, is the idea that when people get so polarized, which it feels we are now, about almost everything. And I would point to the Republican Party, just the Senate just sitting there as, you know, a do-nothing. But even in society as people, then how do we move? I mean, how do we find, there's no more to the question, how do we?
Yeah, no, and you'll forgive me if I don't have a real answer to that, you know, because I think, but honestly, and I hate to be like a one note singer, you know, but it really comes down to what is our first principle. I don't mean just like what's our first principle in the 7. I mean first principles in how we approach the world. You know, that somebody who is just stridently dogmatic, is there a way to love them back into an integrated society? You know, is there a way to speak with them and challenge them in such a way that they feel humanized? And this goes for everybody, you know, that they can join a community. I wonder if people who, you know, I wonder if it's really about race or violence or, you know, or any of these. I think that what we're seeing might be symptoms of an isolated people, you know, that they are, yeah, that you know, that what we're seeing is more symptoms than the root of the problem. Glennis has, oh, and by the way, thank you so much for what you said about the service.
What about JC?
That really means a lot to me. Yeah.
Well, JC first, right?
Okay.
Right.
JC.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think the thing that is necessary is something that is important, that I have learned to do. And that is to know that anything that I believe now, I am willing to drop as a belief if it becomes a part of the problem.
Love it.
But when I do that, I don't know at the time what the next belief is.
Right.
I only know that that one doesn't work anymore, so I have to close it down and watch the doors open and see where I can go now. And here's the main thing, because I have values, and I will do certain things and I will not do other things. And I heard a beautiful description of this yesterday from the mouth of my daughter, who said she chooses to be a person who trusts.
Yes.
That means that she is going to be brokenhearted over and over and over again, because that she trusts does not make other people trustworthy. And that's an awesome concept.
Whoa.
She will not become a non-truster just because others can't be trusted. And she knows that when they do whatever they do that breaks her heart, she will just hold that space.
Wow.
And as I listened to her, I knew how deeply I have broken her heart by being here with Lillian instead of being in Portland, where she can take care of me. But I can't change her belief or her need, so she has changed it. And I have watched this happen. And it's what she teaches. We have to be willing to drop from ourselves whatever no longer works. And in a world where everybody is equally dignified, some things aren't going to work. And I, you know, have trouble learning them just as everybody does. But I can know it in a minute and drop it.
And I wonder, if that is the ego, that, that if what we believe, that those things that we have to drop are not necessarily part of us. They're something that we carry, as opposed to something that defines us.
Well, the ego is a function.
Okay.
It is not of my essence.
Right. Yes.
That's what I have learned to do to get along in the world.
Right.
And in this case, it has to back off.
Yeah. Glennis has something to say.
Well, I was just going to speak to maybe just coming to some kind of an agreement with someone who thinks differently. And I came to realize within a couple of discussions with people that I dearly love, but who are clearly opposite thinkers, is that we are seeing the same event exactly through completely different lenses. And what is true and valid for me is true and valid for them. And you have to kind of understand, I think, that point, whether you agree with that or not, because I most of the time, like I've said, I don't. But it's just like completely different lenses and with the same event. And I think that that's something that we keep running up against, or at least I do, when it comes to discussions with people.
Yeah.
It's part of the work that I think that we all have to do in our own way too. We are being systematically split as a society, and I've just been looking for ways of stopping that, at least in my own way.
Yeah. So the way that the world is viewed, right? If any of you have been a part of theater, there is a screen that goes down in front of the stage, which is made of gauze. And what it does is it blurs and obscures everything behind the gauze in order to make it seem dreamy, or, to make it seem, less defined. Everything's blurred. And I feel like we've got a gauze in front of us and everybody's kind of making their own mind about, or they're letting people tell them, perhaps is a better analogy, of what's going on behind that gauze. And perhaps the task is we've got to lift that gauze so that we can all see as clearly as possible.
Well, how do we do that?
Yeah, no, I know that's the question, man.
We start with that AEO class. I'm really looking that AEO class on how to be an ally. I think that sounds like a great step.
Mm-hmm. Kim, you haven't chimed in yet. Do you have anything?
I'm not sure yet.
It's okay if you don't. It's just wanted to give you a comment.
Everyone has a good point.
I have my hand up.
Okay. Can we do Connie and then
Sharon?
And then Sharon. Okay, cool. Yes.
Okay, what I was going to say is, to me, what this has brought up is maybe as a real need for us to be able to meet in some small groups and share with each other how we think our values came to us. And if we've been able to change, or ones that we can't. I mean, I think another person could help me explore why I hold on to some and others, like JC was saying, I'll let that one go. But I think it's through listening and through feedback that I'll learn how I've held on to some things that maybe I could let go, that aren't working for me anymore, but I'm attached to them for whatever reasons.
Yeah.
Michael, there is a way on Zoom to break down into small groups to achieve what Connie wanted to do. I haven't learned how to do that yet, but
I'm not suggesting that now. I'm suggesting, I know,
that.
Okay.
But when we did the racism class, you know, if we end up with
Yeah.
15, 20 people, it would be essential to have activities where we could do that. I'm sorry I interrupted, Sharon.
Oh, that's okay. That was important.
Yeah.
Going back to your sermon, Michael, the first note I took was the difference between discussion and debate.
Yeah.
And you asked, how do we get to hear the other person's viewpoint? That's paraphrased, sort of.
Yeah.
So a discussion, if I got what you said correctly, is seeking the truth.
Right. Both parties are desperately trying to discern what is truth.
Whereas in a debate, they're just trying to prove their point.
Yes, they're trying to win. The object of
And that's what I hear most of the time in our politics, on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
any of them. And everybody that's speaking is trying to be louder than the other person. So they think that volume means rightness.
Right.
And that's when I turn off.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear any of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So isn't the secret here is learning how to listen?
Yay.
Yes.
Yay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, well put. Well put. Yeah.
And not be preparing your next statement while
Right.
you're not listening.
Wait, who's guilty of that? Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Especially on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's where I get my practice.
Right.
So maybe we need some coaching in valid listening.
That's smart.
Maybe we need not just depend on the moderator to do conflict resolution, but for all of us to learn conflict resolution.
Yeah.
Lillian, did you hear that?
I did hear that. And there's a way on Zoom to mute everyone.
There you go.
Moderator can mute everyone, which forces us all to listen. And then one by one, as you want to speak, you get unmuted.
So I haven't done that because, you know, I feel like it's gone well. You know, if people interjecting,
So far.
would you rather?
No,
No.
Okay.
No.
this is fine.
It would be, it's more difficult participating in a conversation or discussion when there are large numbers of people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Kim, you. I don't
find that
on you.
in a discussion, if I listen and pay attention to what images come up for me and stick with that, and then I share that, I say, when you said da-da-da-da, I remembered or I thought of or I wondered. Those things, that's one thing that I think I have learned to do, mainly by listening to other people try and solve their problems.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we need to define what those skills of listening are.
Yeah.
I have a point to make that I listen differently. And sometimes it's not helpful. It isn't helpful because I can sense beyond words. It's as if waves of feeling are emanating from the person. I can tell when you're lying, usually. If you're not genuine, if it's not from the heart. Sometimes I'm totally wrong, but not very often. And so sometimes the words, I listen and understand differently from the words coming out of your mouth because I can sense differently. And it sometimes isn't helpful. I'll literally turn around if I sense that you're being disingenuous. And that's not helpful at all to anyone.
Well, isn't it though? I mean, and just a sidebar, that there are some people who are extra sensitive to somebody's intention. So it could be that you're just one of those people who's sensitive to intention, and if your intention is to lie or to be dishonest, you pick up on that. But there have been studies, tons of studies done about women's ability to gauge intention versus men's ability to gauge intention, and it's like night and day, and I personally believe that's probably an evolutionary result, because it's kind of necessary for interpersonal relations between the sexes. But yeah, but you said, when you said like it isn't helpful, meaning that your intuition isn't helpful always?
No, my intuition is helpful, but in a group setting, if I am detecting disingenuous, I am dismissing that person at that moment when the next words out of their mouth might be perfectly genuine.
Okay.
And so I do have difficulty many times why I don't speak up, because I have to ascertain logically what the overall gist of their comments might be,
Have you experienced that in this discussion at all?
As what?
In this discussion, have you experienced that?
No, I have not.
Cool.
I don't often notice that in the UU community, which is why I've been a member and attendee for so long. It is different. So, but that on occasion elsewhere, primarily it happens. So.
Okay. Well, it's good to know that we're an honest bunch. That's nice. JC?
That's exactly when paying attention to your reactions is important, because, Sharon, when the voices get loud, I become about 5, and the parents are arguing, and I check out. Even if I'm 84 sitting and listening to you all. But I need to remember that, because that means I quit listening. So that's what I mean about being aware of what your response is. And if it's suspiciously out of range, age-wise or intention, shut up. Listen. Because then you come up with different meanings of words, like Julianne was saying. And they'll have said this word, and to me, in my whatever, timeless reaction, will think it means a whole different thing.
Yeah.
I have to put a post-note on that. That's probably
not fair.
Post-note, it doesn't apply to JC and some other people, because she's hard of hearing and she speaks loudly. And I have learned, because I had an angry, raging father, I had learned really quickly on, ignore the volume because this woman has something important to say. So, and back to what you're talking about, Julianne, that empathic ability, I find that true also in the UU church. And it's really, really difficult to shield in those kinds of circumstances. And I shut down. I have to just shut down or go away. And
I agree.
And I don't experience that much at all in our congregation, which I think is why, for the first time in my life, I belong to a church.
But also,
other churches can get really dogmatic and wild.
I think.
Well, I'd like to share what I'm experiencing at the moment, and that is my dear friend JC has often said to me, are you feeling like your father is talking to you when you hear the increase in volume? And I recognize that happens, but I am working on the courage. And this might be pertinent to you, Julian, I don't know. I'm working on the courage to identify it in the moment and then inform the other person so they can take note of maybe they didn't mean it the way they said it or the delivered it, or that they could say it in a different way so I don't get triggered.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that is, we need to be aware that we are able to do that.
And
That's
it's got to do with my working on myself to gain more confidence in those situations. And it's really hard for me.
Well, I don't think
Hard for me too.
Yeah, I think it's perfectly reasonable, you know, and probably extremely helpful to be able to say to somebody the tone in which you're speaking or the words you're using, you know, that I can't hear what you're saying because the way that you're saying what you're saying bothers me. Can you reword it? Can you use a different tone? You know, I don't see anything wrong with that if you're in a discussion.
But you have to have the self-confidence.
Well, that's true.
To do that. And if in the past you were hit,
yeah,
or you were belittled, or you were spanked, you know, or you were sent to your room, you've got to overcome all that in a few seconds in order to address what's happening in the here and now.
Well, I think that's why, you know, I always had that holy warrior mentality of that, you know, that it's not necessarily in a few seconds if it's something that you practice internally. You know, I mean, you still have something to overcome, but it is like building up strength in order to generate that courage to say, I need you to say this differently, or I need, you know.
Michael, if you go back to, you know, the sermon, and we're talking about polarization. I'm going to say something that might be kind of controversial, but you know, I think the IQ is a whole lot higher among a whole lot. And my experience of trying to have those conversations is that if I'm lowering my voice, because I don't have a loud voice, as you all know, I'm going to get talked over. And the more ridiculous the argument often, and the more dynamic and dogmatic the argument gets, the louder it gets. And I don't have a chance of getting a voice in, nor do I even feel like I want to. I'm like Sharon, I just want to curl up inside and go away, you know, because I feel that.
Well, I mean, the power to walk away is something that I don't know.
But then there's never resolution, and that's the difficulty I had with that part of the sermon.
No,
you know, the whole idea of the polarization and how do we arrive at that place? Not middle ground, but how do we arrive at that place where we can listen and hear and respect, you know, the different viewpoints?
Well, you know, what you said about the IQ, you know, though it was kind of in jest, there was I forget, it was a religious study that was done, but it ranked UUs as some of the highest income earners in church, but the lowest givers. The highest income earners, but the lowest givers to churches.
That's interesting.
Well, I'm wondering, Laline, if you meant to say EQ.
If I meant to say what?
Say EQ as opposed to IQ. In other words, emotional intelligence.
Yep.
I think there are a whole lot of variables. Back in 1976, I think, I was developing a college course I was teaching called Character in Conflict. And I was teaching it in Southern California at Cal State Fullerton University, which is a community where everybody lives behind walls. And very white. I mean, that school was incredibly white. So we did this semester-long course where each week we did another ism, you know, prejudice, racism, classism, sexism, you know, every week, you know, was different. And what I learned from that was that, and I would say this of you viewers, is there's a development as one moves from that place that Michael was talking about earlier, where you bring the truths you've learned from your environment growing up into your journey of trying to find out who you are, what is your character going to be, what are you going to believe. And what I found among students in their discussions over the course of a semester is that as they broadened in their thinking, as they actually challenged their IQs and their emotional, you know, levels to both listen and think and hear differently, that the level of discussion became one of very similar, both volume, emotional content, intellectual, searching, struggling, you know, trying to reach forward. And it was incredibly rewarding, and I never forgot that. And I think of it often today. We're so polarized. People seem so locked in what my father taught me, you know, whatever, however you want to describe that.
So I didn't plan on keeping you all past an hour. You know, sorry, not everybody's made great points. But I was hoping that maybe we could start to wrap up our discussion with maybe some final thoughts, if you want to.
Oh, I have
Michael, could I say, just jump in about
Absolutely. That? Yeah.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say what wonderful, wonderful, thought-provoking sermon, but also it just makes my little heart feel so good to see all of you and participate in this kind of discussion. And I think that's what my person has been wanting desperately, for my contact with my congregation. So I thank you all for participating. I thank you, Michael, for facilitating this. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Thanks. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. This was a good sermon. I'm going to go back and listen to it. It's a good spot. I would like to add that if any of you want to do another Zoom meeting outside of a formal setting, email me or call me. I can set something up so that there can be a group chit chat, discussion, whatever. I do not have to be involved. I can just host it and then walk away. And you can have your discussion, or I can participate. So I've got a paid account for up to 100 people. So
wow.
Maybe we could do just a few last parting thoughts. You know, just going left to right, top to bottom. So Glennis, would you mind?
Oh, can I come last? Okay. I have so many things going on. I haven't brought it together.
I was just thinking like 2 sentences or less, you know. Kim?
Well, Kim started to talk a minute ago, so.
Well, I just had a question. What do you guys do when you have different opinions on things, and the other person, because they don't believe in your opinion, don't degrade you for their opinions? Because I've had that happen.
I would say you can't change a person. That somebody who is.
And I was not trying to change the person, and I even told the person that I respect their views, because we have a right to have our own views and our own free speech, you know.
Yeah.
But they proceeded to say that they don't agree with that, and they I had to look up the words that they were saying. Right. They called me.
when I say change a person, what I mean is you can't change a person into being open to seeing your point of view, right? If they're gonna be closed-minded, there's unfortunately nothing you can do about that, in my opinion. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sad.
Yeah. Did you enjoy the talk? Was it?
Yeah.
Wonderful? Oh, good. Okay, cool. Anne, do a goodbye sentence.
Sure. Following up on something JC said, and that is that no healthy tree has gone without having some dead wood chopped off.
Exactly.
Well put. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Dana and Gemma?
See, what would I say? It has a lot to do with letting go of ego, and that we have to really work with our minds in order to create a space that feels safe enough to engage in conversations like this, and then move towards love. And that's what the Dalai Lama has been saying. I've been watching he's got this movies on right now with regards to his teachings over time, and what he has gone through has been very, very moving and very good to be a part of it this time. So thanks everybody for being here. This is great.
Yeah, thank you. Sherry, closing thoughts?
You say Sharon?
Sherry?
Oh, okay. I keep going back to what JC shared about Christina, saying she is a person who's decided to trust, but that does not make others trustworthy. And that is something I have to keep remembering. Otherwise, I lose all hope. I have to continue to have the hope that others will come around and want to talk instead of cutting me off. And I think the sermon was great. I feel like my heart is just full right now from seeing all of you and hearing you. Thank you.
Thank you. Martha, closing thoughts?
I'm just really delighted to have this conversation. It was extremely powerful, and it was a good continuation of your talk. And I thank everyone. And as we were talking about people who just can't seem to understand, can't seem to listen, want to put you down, Red Rainier said it really well. He said, you can't fix stupid. And it's not worth your energy. And that happened to Joe in a market where this man came alongside of him in Sherms on a scooter and said, hey man, why don't you just man up and take off that mask? And Joe decided he heard Reg in his ears, and he said, I can't fix stupid, and he just motored on with his cart. So it's very important that we are aware of sometimes you can't fix somebody. You can share your thoughts and try to listen. And I know I don't want to make that truncated, but it reminds me of the dead wood analogy. I'm always cutting dead wood out of my bushes and trees because they can't grow. And there you go. You can't grow when you're dead. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. What about Lillian and JC?
I'm going to echo Connie a little bit, Michael. My heart is so happy. You know, when we wrote that grant, that first line in Who's Gonna Do It talked about Michael and your skills at facilitating conversation and engaging and involving people. And I mean, my entire day so far, in terms of any kind of stimulus, started with your sermon. And Connie and Martha, you did a good job too. But, you know, ending with this, I'm just really singing your praises, and it feels really good. And my heart has wanted it for a really long time. Thank you.
And that really means a lot to me. Thank you.
Well, my final thing is, let's remember that the other person is in the conversation. And if they're yelling at me, that's them.
That's right.
It's not me. I'm not responsible for their yelling.
Exactly.
What I have said may make them fearful because their current way of seeing the world doesn't include me. But that's not my fault. And I'm thinking of Sharon and her father, whose story I am very deeply aware of. Instead of having some great need and confidence, how about just realizing the other person who's yelling at you is yelling because of something you've said that upsets them.
That triggered you.
And you could just say something simple like, I'll bet you're not going to hit me, are you? And then he'll say, why? And you'll say, well, when my father talked to me the way you're talking,
Wow.
it usually ended in me getting hit.
Okay.
But that's you telling how you are responding to the presentation, not the argument at all. Because let's face it, each one of us is a whole person, dead wood and all. And it could be that somebody's just trying to offer you a clipper to get rid of some shit. Or they're hard of hearing. Well, there is that.
That's powerful. That's really powerful. So, Connie, I don't know if you already made your closing statement or.
I just have one little comment about myself, that if I really believe in the inherent worth of another person, then I have to improve my skills on listening and focus on what you pointed out, to have a discussion and not a debate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a good end result of your sermon.
Yeah. Discussion, not a debate.
Julianne, do you feel like saying one more thing?
No, I just want to thank everybody. This has been great to see you and to participate. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anne, got a closing thought for Anne?
Me?
Yeah. Oh, you already do, Anne? I can't remember.
You did.
I passed,
Sorry.
so you're coming around.
Glennis gets the last word.
Well, I just wanted to say it was awesome to see all of you. I look forward to this again. One thing that I might say to Kim would be to try to keep in mind what I do when somebody is becoming abusive because of my points of view. And that if you are calling me names, if you're screaming at me, then you don't have an argument. And please come back and talk to me when you have an argument, because then we can discuss.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
All right. Well, spirit of life, and God bless you all. And I hope you have a beautiful Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.